Good morning, everyone. Welcome to episode 8 of the Willow Cove Crafts podcast, a podcast about knitting and sewing and my other crafty endeavors. My name is Emily, and you can find me on both Ravelry and Instagram as Willow Cove Crafts. Today is Sunday, August 8th, 2021. And I am coming to you from just outside of Madison in Verona, Wisconsin. It's been about 2 weeks since I last recorded, and I cannot believe that it is already the beginning of August. Time is flying by. Well, I do enjoy every season. For some reason or another, summer is my personal favorite, and so I do get a little sad in August knowing that things are wrapping up and that we're getting really close to heading into fall. But one of the obvious perks of fall in the cooler weather is that, at least in this part of the world, we can start wearing our hand knits. It usually starts getting cold here maybe around October. September is usually still pretty hot. So yes, what have we been up to the last 2 weeks since we last spoke? Let's see. Last Saturday, I had a bachelorette party that I attended. One of my friends, she is already married. Her and her husband were kind of a COVID engagement, if you will, and so they ended up getting married last summer in a really small ceremony, and now next month is their official wedding that they were not able to have last year as planned. And so we had a bachelorette party for her, and we rented a boat, and so we went out on Lake Mendota, did some swimming, and then we had a nice dinner at Cento in Madison, if you are familiar with the area. It's one of my favorite restaurants in town. And so yeah, that was a lot of fun. And then yesterday, Dan and I met up with some friends to go bowling and have some dinner with them. They are a couple that we haven't really seen during lockdown, and so now we're starting to try and get out a bit more and see the people that we haven't seen a lot over the last year, and so that was really nice to spend some time with them. Other than that, just working every day and trying to get as much knitting done as possible. As far as crafty content is concerned today, I have no finished objects, which I think this is my first episode where I don't have anything finished, which is, I'm surprised I've had finished objects every episode, to be honest. Like, I'm shocked that I've made it this long without having a finished thing. But yes, no finished objects. I do have a couple new projects to show you. If you watch my last episode, I'm still working on all of the same projects I showed there. But I had a bit of cast-on-itis, and I have started a few new things, which I will be showing you today. So let's get started and talk about some knitting content. I think I'm gonna start with the projects you would have seen before. I don't know why, but I love waiting until the end to show you my new cast-ons. It feels like a big, ta-da, I don't know. It feels more fun to save it to the end. So anyways, I will start with some of my older works in progress. I have been working on a pair of socks by Ogle Design, or the yarn is by Ogle Design, and this is the label. The yarn line is called Coloration, which I believe is their kind of like faded yarn. It, you know, does a bit of an ombre effect. And then this, as far as I can tell, does not have a colorway name. I picked this up a couple years ago at the Wisconsin Sheep and Wool Festival, and yeah, I don't think there's a colorway. But since last episode, I have finished my first sock. You can see where I was the last time I recorded with this marker. I still have a couple ends to weave in, but the first sock is done. I love the way it looks. I think it has a really cool effect. And I have started the second sock. So I'm working down the leg of the second sock. And the way this yarn comes, it comes in 2 of these cakes, so that you can get matching socks even with the fading. So really excited about that. I'm using my standard sock recipe, which I think is kind of the standard sock recipe that a lot of people use, but 64 stitches, 2x2 rib, top down, heel flap and gusset. What I did do, I'm getting tangled. I did not want to disrupt the color sequencing, and so for the heel flap, I just grabbed from the opposite end of the ball and knit the heel flap in the lightest part of the yarn. And I think it makes it look really cohesive while still, you know, using the same yarn that the rest of the sock is knit out of. So yes, these are my Ogle Design socks. Really excited about those. I admittedly didn't get as much knitting done on these as I would have liked. I think I've mentioned before that I tend to only really knit socks when I'm out of the house, you know, maybe like waiting in line, or, you know, if I, you know, I'm sitting out in public somewhere and want to be knitting on something. I really like socks because they're portable and small. I guess that kind of means the same thing. They're portable and they're usually pretty simple. It's basically just knitting. But yeah, over the last couple weeks, I just haven't had a lot of opportunities to work on these. So those will get done when they get done. I'm not really in a rush to finish them. So yes, you'll probably be seeing those for the next couple episodes or so. Next up is the project I've probably worked on the least out of all of my whips this week. I put a couple rows on my Hyldebaer shawl by Fiber Tales. You can see the marker is where I was last time, so I maybe did 1 repeat plus some change. Yeah, I am admittedly hitting a little bit of a wall with this shawl. The rows are getting really long. I can't believe I'm saying this because typically I love knitting baubles, but I am getting a little sick of them. I don't have that much farther to go on the body of the shawl. I forget exactly how many rows I have left, but I'm pretty sure I only have 3 bobble rows left. So I'm in the home stretch. But yeah, this, out of all of my projects, is the one I think I want to work on the least, just because I'm a little tired of bobbling. I have to be honest. I think once I finish the body of the shawl and get to the border is a completely different stitch pattern. It's cabled, it's an applied border, so I think a lot of people get to the border of a shawl and think that they're almost done. I definitely do not fall in that camp. I am well aware that the borders of shawls are typically a lot of work. However, I will say that I enjoy applied borders because the rows are really short and it feels like, even though it's a lot of work to knit that border, it feels like it moves quickly to me because your rows are like so much shorter than the rest of your shawl. So almost done, almost there. But yeah, excited to finish up the body and switch up the stitch pattern a little bit. I am using Knit Picks Preciosa, which is a single ply 100% fingering weight wool in just their bare color, undyed, and it's kind of a yellowy cream. So yes, again, that is the Hyldebaer shawl by Fiber Tales, and getting close to finishing the body of the shawl, but also feeling very unmotivated to finish the body of the shawl. My next whip is my No Frills sweater by PetiteKnit. Oh, my yarn balls are rolling off my lap. Here it is. To lean back so you can see the whole thing. Since last time, you can see where I was. I've added maybe about an inch and a half to the body, but I have started the ribbing. So all done with the main body of the sweater, and now just doing a couple centimeters of ribbing to finish up the body. And then we're taking a trip to Sleeve Island. But I love this sweater. I think it looks so pretty. It's so soft. The yarn I am using is, let me get myself situated. The first one, the main yarn is Lynai yarns in Tears, which is a superwash fingering weight. This is what it looks like in the cake. Just a very pretty ice blue speckled yarn. And then I am holding that double with less traveled yarns. They're Silk Mohair in the Whisper colorway. And again, that is, I'm reading the tag, 72% kid mohair, 28% silk. And this is what it looks like in the cake. It is just the softest, lightest lavender color. And it's just got, I think you can kind of see, it's just got like a hint of variation in there, just a little bit of blue. And it is so pretty and so soft. And together, they do make a beautiful fabric, I think. So yeah, not much else to say about this sweater. Just chugging along, hoping to finish up the body soon. And yeah, I'm really hoping that this one wraps up kind of quickly. I think I mentioned last time that this had been an unfinished object that I maybe started 2 years ago, and I was really craving some sort of mohair project, and so I picked this out and started working on it again, and it really is so lovely. I feel like mohair just adds, obviously, a lot of texture, but you know, the sweater is basically just a plain stockinette sweater, but it somehow it just makes it so much more enjoyable to work on, like having that addition of mohair. I love just knitting away and seeing that fabric grow and just seeing that beautiful mohair halo. It's the little things, right? My last work in progress that you have seen before is my Slipstravaganza blanket by Stephen West. I got quite a bit done on this since last episode. It, again, doesn't look like a lot because the rows are so long, but I worked on this for quite a few days last week. So yes, I am on the column section. Let me back this up so you can see the whole thing. I'm on the column section and I am working on my last round of, these red little blips, and getting really close to finishing this section. And then I will be moving on to the bubble section, which for some reason is the part of the blanket I am most excited to knit. And it's the part of the blanket I think that has the most like color changes, and so I'm just really excited to work through that section. And I love the look of a bubble stitch. I've never knit it before, but yeah, I really like the way it looks. I really want to knit a sweater in a bubble stitch. I'm really looking forward to working on that part of the blanket. So hopefully in my next episode, I will have finished up this section and we'll have started the bubble stitch. This thing is getting pretty unwieldy. I don't know what I'm going to do for needle management on this because like we are still in the beginning stages of this blanket. The stitch count is going to, I think, quadruple, maybe even get to be 5 times what it is currently. I'm thinking I might have to purchase a couple extra. I'm using my ChiaoGoo interchangeables. I might need to buy a couple more 50-inch cords and get some connectors and just make a super long cord to kind of manage all of those stitches. Something I was thinking about with this blanket and just like seeing other people's blankets on Instagram and seeing how big it is, like how do you block this? I think it could definitely use some blocking. The border is a chevron, and so I think, blocking will really help those points stand out. But like, I do not have enough blocking mats to contain this whole thing. And so I would be curious if anyone has any tips for blocking a blanket project, something that's really quite large. Because I do definitely want to block this when it's done. It just seems like it would be maybe a bit challenging. Again, that's the Slipstravaganza blanket by Stephen West. I don't think I mentioned yet, but the yarn I am using is what is called for in the pattern, which is the Westwool Tandem, which is Stephen West's brand of wool. It is a DK weight, and it is, I always forget the breakdown, 10% Texel and 90% Falkland Merino. And I believe those are 2 different breeds of sheep. I personally really like to know, when possible, like what breed of sheep my yarn is. I find all of that really interesting. So anyway, slowly working away on that. I'm not going to go through the colors this time. Maybe every other episode I'll go through the colors. I think I went through them last episode. But again, these are all Westwools. And I think it's pretty obvious if you go look on his website what the different colors are. Or you can go look at some of my older episodes where I go through all of my different colors. So yes, love this one. Even though it's getting pretty big, I do like, you know, how simple the stitch patterns are. And I feel like I can just knit away and not think about it too much. And, you know, all of a sudden it, you know, you've reached a milestone in your project. That's always nice. Next up is my brand new cast on. When I saw this sweater, I definitely knew I wanted to knit it. I was not going to start it. I was gonna be good and focus on my current projects, but it was just kind of like a series of serendipitous events. So I saw this sweater and I was like, I'm gonna make that. And then I saw Stacy of the Stress Knits podcast is also knitting this sweater. And I saw her colors and I was like, that is how I'm gonna do mine. That sweater is perfect. I love it so much. And so I decided, even though I wasn't ready to start the sweater, that I was going to buy the yarn. And so I purchased the yarn and then found out it is a newer pattern. And so I then found out that there was a knit along. And the day I found out that there was a knit along was the day that the knit along was starting. And I was like, oh, that, you know, I always want to participate. And then I was like, oh, but no, my yarn's not even here yet. My yarn had not been delivered yet. And I was like, but it's probably getting here soon. And I was at work when I realized this. And so I just quick went and looked at my email to see when my yarn was set to be delivered. And to back up a little bit, this pattern takes 2 different types of yarns, and I had ordered them from separate shops. And I went and looked, and lo and behold, both of my yarns, 2 separate packages, were getting delivered that day. So I found out about the knit along and that my 2 yarns had arrived all in the same day. And it all just seemed to indicate that I needed to start this sweater. So the sweater I am talking about is a brand new pattern by Andrea Mowry. It is the Illuminate sweater, and it is so gorgeous. And so I started this, I think on Tuesday, so less than a week ago, and it has consumed most of my knitting time. It's all I really want to work on. But here it is so far. I don't know how to show this. There you go. It's something. And this is my progress. It's kind of really squished up on this needle. I'm also showing you kind of a weird angle. This is the front. And then I know people really like to see yokes kind of laid flat like this, but it doesn't really look great because my needle is too small. But anyways, I'm obsessed with it. It's all I want to work on. I think it looks so good, and it's, you know, got a really strong fall vibe. I feel like I'm getting ready for, you know, pumpkin patches and apple picking. Not that I like ever do those things. I always intend to, and then I don't. Also, this yarn, or like this color combination, is a little Christmassy to me. I don't know if anyone else like sees that, but like there's like red and green, and I think it looks a little Christmassy as well. So anyways, that's all I want to work on. The yarn I am using is, so the pattern recommends Spincycle Nocturne, which I was doing some research because I was curious how Nocturne differs from their dyed in the wool. Because they're both sport weight, they both kind of do the color shifting that Spincycle is known for. But the Nocturne is dyed on a different base, and I believe that sheep, I don't know the breed, but it has kind of a grayer wool. And so when you dye the yarn on gray as opposed to a cream or white, obviously the colors look a little bit more muted and dark. But anyways, the Nocturne is a little hard to get your hands on these days. I think because of this sweater, people, Andrea Mowry designs with Spincycle a lot, and I feel like whenever she releases a new pattern that uses it, it sells out just everywhere. But I was able to get my hands on some of the dyed in the wool, which was actually what I wanted. Again, I was really using Stacy, again, of Stress Knits, her color scheme. That's what I wanted my sweater to look like as well. So I got some dyed in the wool in the Rusted Rainbow colorway. Again, that's one of Spincycle's sport weight yarns, Rusted Rainbow. And then my mohair is the Isager silk mohair in Rose, which is like a very, very light pink mauve color. That's pretty accurate right there. It has a tendency to blow out. And then yes, I am still on my first ball of Spincycle. And again, if you're not familiar with Spincycle, they have a technique for their yarns that makes it kind of shift colors. And I think you can really see that in the sweater. You know, this is all one ball of yarn. And you can see that as we go through, it does this kind of slow color changing throughout. And it ends up with a really cool effect. Something I did want to talk about with Spincycle is you have to be a little open to what you get. I purchased this online and I put in a note to the seller that I would prefer some more red leaning skeins. Essentially, like the technique that they use with Spincycle, every skein is different. Within a certain colorway, obviously the skeins are gonna follow the same kind of color scheme, but the variation is huge. And so you can end up with two skeins of the same colorway that look vastly different. And so I put in a note to the vendor that I was purchasing from that, you know, I'm making a sweater, I would, you know, prefer the yarn be a little bit more like red orange. And they accommodated that for me. So I definitely think if you're buying a sweater quantity of Spincycle, don't be afraid to at least ask to see if they can try to give you skeins that look similar to each other. That being said, so I ordered 5 skeins of the Rusted Rainbow. One of them looks a lot different than the other 4. I did cake that one up to swatch, and I just wanted to show you. You know, the red and orange is obviously, I expected that, but this one has a lot of black in it, which is not something I like really want to include in my sweater compared to, you know, here are my 3 other skeins. I think these all look very similar. And then there's this one that is a bit more red and black compared to these other ones, which are more orange and green. So just something to be mindful of. I think my strategy is going to be to use up these 4. And then for this one, obviously I swatched with this one just because, you know, I would rather use this up outside of the sweater. But then once I'm done with these 4, I think, I'll definitely finish the body, and then I will try and do some weighing to use up as much as this is possible, like in the sleeves, to like evenly split it between the sleeves, and then I will finish up the sleeves with what I need from this ball. And I will probably pull out the black bits, so I don't end up using them. I think I'll probably have enough yarn to do that. But that is also an option for yarn management with Spincycle, is if you don't like a particular color or you don't think it kind of goes with the rest of your project, you can just pull it out. So that will be my strategy. But yes, I'm hoping the bulk of the sweater can be knit up with these skeins. And again, here's my contrast mohair. I did have to do a little ripping out of this for no fault of anyone's, except my own, and it's not even a fault. I'm gonna try to include a link below. I'm gonna try to remember about color dominance in your color work. It's not really a concept I was aware of when I first started knitting and trying some color work projects, but I do think it's really important. How you, if you're not familiar, how you hold your floats when you're doing color work can impact the way things look on the front side. When you're doing 2 colors, stranded color work, your floats, like one float is gonna kind of rest on top of the other float. So I like to think of it as a top float and a bottom float. And it's really important to be consistent with how you hold your floats. So I try really hard to pay attention and make sure that I have one color that is consistently on top of the other color. And then the other thing to keep in mind is that whatever color you hold on the bottom is what is called your dominant color. And those stitches are going to pop just a little bit more than your non-dominant or your top color float. And there's really no right or wrong way to do it. It just kind of depends on what look you're going for and which of your 2 colors you want to pop a little bit more. But it is something to pay attention to. And I think, if you don't pay attention to it, your knit is still gonna look really beautiful. But I do think paying attention to color dominance and how you hold your floats can really step up your color work and make it look, just a little bit more refined. But anyways, I started the color work on this with my mohair being dominant. I thought I would like that a bit more. But I did feel like it was, swallowing up my rusted rainbow a bit. So I ripped back. I got maybe about halfway through this first chart and decided that I wanted to change it. So I ripped back and then started knitting with the rusted rainbow as my dominant color. And I'm really happy with how that's turning out. The color work pattern on this sweater is very graphic and geometric, and so I wanted those really sharp lines with the rusted rainbow to come through. So yes, really excited about this. I'm hoping to finish it by the time the knit along is over, which I believe is mid-October sometime. I want to say the 16th, but don't quote me on that. So I will be working on this a ton over the next couple months. Next up, we will move into some sewing content. I admittedly have not been sewing a ton in the last few weeks, but I did get a little bit of work done and I started a new quilt, which I really shouldn't have done. I mentioned a couple episodes back that I had been working on a Little Miss Sawtooth Star quilt by Southern Charm Quilts, and that I was kind of setting that aside for a little bit in lieu of some other projects. And then, you know, now I've just unnecessarily started a new quilt, and I really want to avoid languishing projects, so it was not the best decision, but I couldn't help myself. I had to start this project immediately. So we'll see. I will definitely get back to my sawtooth quilt, but it might be a while. But also, like, this is all supposed to be fun, so it's fine if it sits around for a little bit, I suppose. First up, I talked about this on my last couple episodes, but I am making a baby quilt for my friend Amanda, who is having a little boy in December. And I did not get a ton of work on it done over the last couple weeks. I only sewed one block. Here it is. This is the Trippy quilt by Southern Charm Quilts, and I am planning on making 25 blocks just like this one, and putting those together to make a baby-sized quilt. I really love these fabrics. This gold one is, I don't know if you can tell, but it's actually metallic gold. That's probably my favorite one in the whole bunch. But yeah, just slowly working away on that. I don't think ultimately this quilt will take that long to do, but you have to actually work on things to see progress. So we'll see. My goal is to have it done by the time he is born. So I've still got, what, 4 months? 25 blocks, and then sewing them together and doing all the quilting. We'll see. I do think I'm gonna try and quilt that on my standard sewing machine, being that it's small. I mentioned way back in my first episode that my mom has a long arm quilting machine, and she lives only about a half an hour away. So I will often, I say often, I've finished one quilt, but at least on my first quilt, I utilized her long arm and definitely plan on using it more. But I do want to try quilting on my machine. I think I'll probably just end up like stitching in the ditch and just quilting along the different seam lines for this. So I think that's hopefully something that my machine can handle. I was having some issues with my sewing machine and like some, what do you call it? Like thread looping, but I watched some videos and think I have resolved the problem. Knock on wood, I haven't had any issues with thread looping for a couple weeks now. Yes, how you thread your machine is very important, I have learned. Make sure your foot is up and make sure your needle is up, and that personally is what resolved it for me. Simply how I thread my machine was causing me issues. So anyways, there's a lot of videos about sewing machine maintenance out there. So definitely, if you're having a problem with your sewing machine, I recommend looking that up first and seeing if you can solve your own problem. Sewing machines do need to be maintained occasionally, but you might as well see if you can fix it yourself before paying money to have someone else fix it. I think that's a good rule to follow for anything in life. Anyways, the fabric I'm using, I forgot to mention, this is a collection of cotton and steel fabrics. I purchased a jelly roll, and I believe it was the Around the World series. These were their Japan fabrics. And so yeah, it was a jelly roll of, I believe, 40 strips, and it's should be the perfect amount to make a baby blanket. So really liking how that has turned out, but my attention has been grabbed and is being pulled in a different direction. My new quilt that I have started is the Ombre Puff Quilt by Lo and Behold Stitchery. I am properly obsessed with it. Definitely go look it up if you haven't seen it. It's basically a patchwork quilt, but your squares are little like puff pillows. I believe the designer, I forget what her name is, but the owner of Lo and Behold on one of her Instagram posts called them little raviolis, which I think is an accurate description. But anyways, she made this beautiful quilt that went from kind of orange to creams, and I just loved it so much. I wanted to make the exact quilt. I'm all about copying people who make beautiful things, if you haven't noticed. And then I saw that she was releasing fabric bundles for the same fabrics that she had used for her quilt. And I was like, I have to do it. Like, I'm obsessed with this quilt. So, you know, if I want the same one, you know, where better to accomplish that than by purchasing fabric from the source. So I bought that fabric and then it came in the mail and I couldn't help myself. I had to start. So it's 30 different fabrics in the bundle I bought, and I have made 3 batches of puffs. So I will just show those to you. There's my first one. Second fabric is just a plain kind of burnt orange. And then the third fabric is, I think this looks like animal prints. So anyways, and then for the back of my puffs, I'm just using some muslin I have. And this is a free video tutorial. I think there's a written pattern as well that is free that you can download, but Lo and Behold Stitchery on her blog, I'm gonna have to go look up her name, but on her blog, she has a video tutorial. And so essentially you make these, again, little ravioli pockets. And you can see that there's like pleats on the sides. So you sew up 3 sides and then, you know, you make all your puffs and then you sew them together and you stuff them with like polyfill or whatever your favorite stuffing is. And then you end up with, yeah, like little puffs. It's the most adorable thing I've ever seen. And because it's stuffed, it ends up kind of being like a weighted blanket, and I've been wanting to buy a weighted blanket, and so now I'll just make one and it'll be great. So super excited about that. I'm trying to work on that sparingly. I do really want to get that baby quilt done. That is my top priority, but the puffs are really addicting to make, and I'm having a lot of fun with them. So yes, I really need to finish that baby blanket before I dive into that too heavily. And that is it for my crafty content today. I definitely feel like I have way too many works in progress. I think my sweet spot in my ideal world is a pair of socks, a sewing project, and 2 larger knitting projects. So I would love to only have 4 works in progress. That's for me where I feel like I have enough variety, but am also, you know, consistently working on things and, you know, seeing significant progress on them. But right now I have 7 works in progress, right? Yes, right? I don't know, 7 or 8. 7. But that's, you know, 3 too many in my opinion. So I'm gonna try really hard to control myself and not cast on any new projects until I finish up some of the things I'm already working on. I personally get a bit overwhelmed if I have too many projects going. I, you know, come home from work at the end of the day and like have a little bit of decision paralysis on what I should be working on. And then I pick a project and work on it, but feel guilty about the things I'm not working on. And I do think it takes, for me at least, a little bit of the joy out of knitting. I like, you know, really settling into a project and appreciating that project. And I feel like that is taken away from when I'm thinking about other projects or even thinking about how I'm going to manage my projects and like, you know, I'm going to work on this today, but I'll work on this other thing tomorrow, and then I'll work on this other thing the next day. And I just, you know, instead of enjoying the moment and enjoying the project that is sitting in my lap right now, I am just thinking about other things. And again, I think it robs me a little bit of the joy that knitting brings me. So yeah, I would really like to finish up some things before starting something new. The last thing I wanted to mention today is, like I mentioned at the beginning, I live in the Madison area, and I have been hearing over the last couple weeks that we are getting a new yarn shop. It is called Fiddlesticks Knits. I forget where it is, but I think it's on, I really have no idea, but new yarn shop that is opening up in Madison next Saturday, I believe, or this coming Saturday, I think the 14th. And again, I haven't been, it's a new shop, but I do think it's really important to support your local yarn shop. So I will definitely be checking it out. Probably not on opening day, but maybe the weekend after that. So if you are in the Madison area, definitely go check it out. Brand new yarn shop if you haven't heard already. But yeah, I think that is it for me today. I will be filming again in probably 2 weeks. So happy knitting. Enjoy the last little bits of summer if you are in the Northern Hemisphere, and I will chat with you soon. Bye, everyone.